Tape B is one of the hottest artists to break into the bass music scene in recent years, landing collabs with major artists like Ganja White Night, Wooli, John Summit, Subtronics, and Mersiv. In this video, we'll be digging into the backstory of Tape B's meteoric rise to better understand who he is and how he got to where he is today.
Yo, Tape B!
Tape B's real name is Berk Alkanat, and he was born in Istanbul, Turkey. However, he moved to Boca Raton, Florida with his parents when he was just 3 years old. Early on, he mostly listened to Turkish music, but when he was in 5th grade, his parents got a computer and he started to dig for music on YouTube, being the most inspired by hip-hop.
I was always downloading Lil Wayne and Gucci on my little Razr flip phone and just showing people in literally 5th grade and 6th grade, they were just these kids have never heard of this shit before, and they were just what is this? This is hard.
By the time he was in middle school, he got into electronic music with artists like the Glitch Mob, and then he got into watching Amazing Light's gloving performances on YouTube, being just as amazed by the music as he was the gloving performances. He also began watching anime videos on YouTube, specifically fight scenes from Naruto and Dragon Ball Z, which were his favorite anime shows. Eventually, these videos began to incorporate dubstep, causing him to go down a rabbit hole, which is how he discovered UKF dubstep, and the rest is history. Once he was in high school, he started smoking weed and would hotbox with friends in their car while listening to SoundCloud-era rap like Chance the Rapper's Acid Rap and Days Before Rodeo by Travis Scott, which is actually Tape B's favorite mixtape of all time. His affinity for the mixtape era of rap is what ultimately inspired the core identity of the Tape B branding, but we'll get into that later. Around the time that he was bumping his favorite SoundCloud rap, he snuck into an Asking Alexandria and Hollywood Undead concert, but Borgore was the opener, which was the first time that he was ever exposed to live electronic music. After that, he went to Life in Color for his first festival, then went to Sunset Music Festival during his senior year of high school, which is where he really fell in love with the scene. Eventually, he began to experiment with producing towards the end of high school when his friend showed him GarageBand.
Because one of my friends just came over after high school one day and was you want to make a beat on GarageBand? And I'm what the hell is that? So he downloaded on my computer, we made one. I'm this is so cool.
After graduating high school, he attended the University of Central Florida in Orlando, where he fell more in love with producing, and he started making beats and remixing his favorite songs. This was when he came up with the name Tape B, and there's a pretty cool story behind it. He used to drive a 2005 Volkswagen Passat and had to use a cassette to aux adapter in order to listen to music. I'm sure some of you already know what I'm talking about, but for those that don't, before cars had aux outputs, if you wanted to use an aux cable, you needed either a cassette adapter or a radio transmission aux adapter. Whenever he would insert the cassette adapter, the screen on the radio of his car would light up and say Tape B, so that's the name that he decided to go with when he started putting out music. During all 4 years of college, he was using Logic as his digital audio workstation of choice, but he eventually switched to Ableton around the time that he was finishing up college. He had a scholarship, which he eventually spent on a DJ controller and some speakers. In an interview with MP3 Mag, he said, "I got a scholarship for $2,500, I think, and I used half of it on everything I needed for the semester. But then I had $1,000 left, and I'm alright, I can just go to Guitar Center and spend this on the music equipment I need." At first, his only goal was to be able to DJ at parties and college bars, but eventually his ambitions grew beyond that.
College was kind of just me waiting till Tape B was good enough so I could do Tape B.
He posted his first track on SoundCloud in 2016 during either his freshman or sophomore year of college, a collab with Jeezy featuring 9-5 called Dracula.
Bouncing around, I've been at it for days. Criminal minded, they say that it pays. This life I've been living was simply a phase. I'm gone off that OG, that cushion, that haze.
He posted his second track the following year in 2017, another collab with 9-5 called Spazzin'.
You mad cause your girl wanna smoke with me? Came to the room with 2 blunts, that's that double tree. Had a few riders, I call in the cavalry. Ain't no role model, she still looking up to me.
In 2018, he posted his third track, yet another collab with 9-5 called G2G.
Check my belt and my shoes, my attire. It's always on point like I'm Steph. Making moves, now they watching my steps. Ain't no bait, but I'm banging my chest.
2019 was his senior year, and that's when he really ramped up his releases, uploading originals and remixes. His first big remix that popped off was his remix of Run for Cover by Liquid Stranger, which got over 100,000 plays on SoundCloud. Around this time, graduation was quickly approaching as he was set to graduate in December of 2019, so he lined up a job at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. However, a few months before graduation, he attended Lost Lands, which was what inspired him to really go after his music dreams. He said, "That was the push that I needed. When I was in my tent just listening to my own music, I was like, alright, I can so do this if I just released my music." A couple months later, he released Drip Tapes Volume 1, featuring remixes of some of his favorite rap tracks, including Metro Boomin and 21 Savage's 10 Freaky Girls. Not much later, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and his job offer from Enterprise was retracted, so he was ready to go all in on music. He asked his parents if they would let him live at home and solely pursue music for a year, which they agreed to. He got to work, releasing more originals and remixes, including a remix of Slushy's Candy Flip, which got picked up by Trap Nation, which gave his brand more exposure while also giving him a morale boost. Throughout that year, fans got a heavy dose of Tape B remixes, including a remix of Travis Scott's Butterfly Effect, Flume's On Top, and Galantis' track In My Head, plus Drip Tapes Volume 2. Fans also got to hear the first installment of his Cartoons mix series for Cartoons Volume 1, which opens with a sample from Jimmy Smith Rap, which is the outro track from Jimmy Smith's 1982 album, Off the Top.
Jazz is the only real music's gonna last. All that other bullshit is here today and gone tomorrow.
Towards the end of the year, he released his 2021 ID Showcase featuring a ton of unreleased tracks, and then he was asked to stream a set for Wubbaholics, a Florida-based record label and management organization who helped promote his music and book him shows early on. By this point, his brand was gaining traction, and he was also getting some gigs around South Florida, but he felt a little lost in regards to what he wanted the Tape B project to become.
And it just never really made any sense. I was thinking about changing my name a bunch of times, and I was like, what am I doing with this? And then after I played this set in Tampa 2 years ago, I just remember being so frustrated with myself. I was like, this isn't me. Why'd I play these certain songs? This doesn't make sense. What am I doing? So I just went home and reevaluated everything, and I'm like, why do I do this? What do I actually like listening to? And then that's when it kind of clicked, and I'm like, I was just going through old UKF stuff on YouTube, and I'm like, I should just try remixing these songs. Why not? So that night when I got back, I remixed Eyes on Fire, In for the Kill, and Gold Dust all on the same night. And I was like, damn, I just did that. And ever since that day, I'm like, I knew exactly what to do. I'm like, well, cassette tapes are nostalgic, and the B side of stuff is just the other side of I just think of it as a remix, kind of the B side of stuff, because you have your A side, which is the original, and then Tape B being the nostalgic remix side of it. So it all just started making sense after I started releasing the remixes, and I'm like, oh, I can actually see where I'm going with this now. And after that, it just was so easy to work on music, because I was just yeah, it just made sense from there.
He released the Eyes on Fire remix in early 2021, which has now racked up over 500,000 plays on SoundCloud, as it's the perfect modern facelift to the legendary track that made Zeds Dead world famous, and he released the Gold Dust and In for the Kill remixes later that year. Weeks after the Eyes on Fire release, he made a list of top producers to watch in 2021, and now looking back, it's very obvious that he indeed was a producer to watch.
Check this out.
Speaking of producers to watch, are you an up-and-coming producer looking to showcase your music with incredible custom-made visuals? Then today's video sponsor, Banger Show, is the perfect solution for you. Banger Show is a fully customizable video application allowing you to easily create your own epic 3D visuals that sync to the beat of your music, and the best part is, it can all be done in a matter of minutes. You can add 3D models with a massive library of options to choose from, and you can easily add your own pictures and videos to mix them with 3D elements. You can also animate any 3D element by automating its position, rotation, scale, and other parameters. Banger Show offers a variety of dynamic visualizer graphics to bring the pulse of your music into visual form. Another cool feature is Fly Mode, where you can control the camera perspective, allowing you to explore within the 3D space, almost as if you were filming with a drone camera. Banger Show is the perfect way to promote your music professionally, allowing you to create Spotify Canvas, post your songs to YouTube, and create beautiful release day posts on Instagram. Banger Show isn't just for producers either, it's also perfect for DJs and label staff. Get started creating beautiful music videos in minutes with Banger Show using my affiliate link in the description. I receive a cut of every sale, which helps the channel tremendously, allowing me to dedicate more time to videos, which means more frequent uploads and better content. So if you're looking to spice up the visual representation of your brand, Banger Show is the perfect solution. Now back to the video. Now, around this time, his 1 year of pursuing music full-time was up, so he asked his parents for one more year, and they agreed. He had already seen proof of where this was all headed, but that second year was exactly what he needed for it to become everything that he was working towards. He continued on with a rapid release schedule, and in March of 2021, he got a cosign from Excision, landing a track on Subsidia's Dusk Volume 3. He then began getting booked outside of Florida, playing a show with Space Wizard at the Black Box in Denver in the spring of 2021, and a show in Des Moines, Iowa in the summer, while also playing more shows in South Florida. That summer, he announced that he was booked to play EDC Orlando on the Rhino Bus art car, which was a massive deal for him because he had been attending the festival since his freshman year of college, plus it was his first festival appearance ever. In the months leading up to the festival, things continued to snowball for him. Excision showed support by playing out one of his tracks, then he had his first Tape B headline show in Green Bay, Wisconsin, plus shows in Brooklyn, Denver, Tampa, and more. In September, he released his first ever custom cassette tape USBs, which featured 10 plus tracks he'll never release, plus the deluxe version of his Halloween EP, which was unreleased at the time, and he signed them for the first 50 people who ordered. Definitely one of the coolest merch offerings that I've seen from any artist. In October of that year, he released the Hallotapes EP that was originally available on the first run of Tape B USBs, then he played at Duboween in Nashville, and then 1 week later, he hit 1 million plays on SoundCloud. Closing out the year, he played a handful of support slots, as well as a headline show in Rochester, and he capped off his biggest year yet with his second rendition of his IDs showcase. 2021 was certainly a breakout year for Tape B, and his potential was becoming realized, but only partially, as he had much bigger things in store moving forward. Moving on into 2022, he continued to pump out his classic nostalgic flips on SoundCloud with remixes of tracks like Nero's Innocence, A$AP Rocky's Peso, and Zeds Dead's Collapse, which got played out by the legendary dubstep duo. He also released the original track called Yo Tape B, which was the birth of the iconic Yo Tape B sample.
Yo, JP! Showing how it's
He was rapidly being discovered by all sorts of EDM artists, becoming one of the most in-demand supporting artists, opening for Riot, Superfuture, Reaper and Camarion, Champagne Drip, Sully, and more. His festival bookings kicked up as well, playing at Soundhaven and Grizz's Triple Rainbow. In May of that year, he signed with his agent, Zach Berkowitz from Wasserman Music, a group that represents a ton of artists that I'm sure you're all very familiar with. Now, with a new agent on board, he started to get booked for even more festivals, including Illfest, Sewanee Halloween, and Lost Lands, which we'll talk about in a bit because that was a huge deal. It was clear by mid-2022 that he was quickly becoming one of the most in-demand dubstep artists in the scene, as everyone wanted to work with him in some capacity. He appeared on Sully's Encrypted EP on Wakan for their collab called Impulse, then he released a mix with Super Av on Mersiv's Moreflow Records, and he was added for support for Liquid Stranger's Dimensions tour. The final 4 months of 2022 was when Tape B really started to gain massive exposure, playing Interstellar Fest, Gold Rush Neon Dreams, Lunar Tide, Wakan Fest, plus the previously mentioned Soundhaven, Triple Rainbow, and Lost Lands. Lost Lands was a huge deal for him because that was where he found his confidence to really go all in on Tape B in 2019, and fans really showed out for his 4 p.m. set at the Subsidia stage. Also, after catching the attention of Zeds Dead with his Collapse remix, he was able to make his Deadbeats debut on We Are Deadbeats Volume 5, and a couple months later, he released Drip Tapes Volume 3, then his new EP, A Dose of Nostalgia. Towards the end of the year, he played a handful of headline shows in Mobile, Tampa, and Jacksonville, and in the final week of 2022, he released a remix of Mac Miller's In the Bag, then played a New Year's Eve set in Fort Lauderdale at Revolution Live. By this point, it's safe to say that he was popping up on pretty much everyone's radar, and if you still didn't know who Tape B was, you were about to find out in 2023. He played 23 shows from January to May of 2023, including festival appearances at Ubbi Dubbi and Soulfest. In February, he dropped the V2 cassette tape USBs, featuring a deluxe version of his previously released EP, A Dose of Nostalgia, plus a bunch of unreleased tracks. After making his Deadbeats debut the previous year, he was now getting added to Deadbeats show lineups, including Deadbeats vs. Cyclops in Miami and Deadbeats Toronto. Then, he released his Deadbeats debut EP called Oversaturated, followed by Drip Tapes Volume 4. After that, he made his Red Rocks debut as a supporting artist for Dead Rocks, which was followed by the announcement of his Old School New School headline tour that would take place in the fall. He also continued on with new releases, with his Cartoons Volume 2 mix and a collab with Conrank called Neon Shades on Conrank's Rave Day EP. He also released a collab with Wooli called Dopamine, which samples Etta James' 1962 track Something's Got a Hold on Me, which has been popularly sampled through the years with tracks like Levels from Avicii, Flow Ride is Good Feeling, and Finally Moving from Pretty Lights. Before his fall tour kicked off, he had his most stacked festival season ever with his debut at Moonrise, Electric Forest, Hard Summer, and Bass Canyon. He was also a supporting artist on some major shows for artists like Subtronics, Death Pact, and Mersiv. Once fall rolled around, he was off on his Old School New School tour, with quick stops at Wakan and Lost Lands for the second time, followed by the biggest headline shows of the tour with 2 sold-out nights at the Ogden Theater in Denver. In an interview with UKF, Tape B said that after those shows at the Ogden Theater, he thought it couldn't get any bigger than that, but he would soon prove himself wrong in 2024. At the end of 2023, he dropped yet another new mixtape series, this time being called Vibe Check Volume 1, featuring edits of some EDM classics like Nero's Promises and Flight Facility's Crave You. Then, he finished out the year with a set at Radiance New Year's Eve. This brings us to 2024, which so far has been his biggest year yet, as he continues to build momentum with each passing year, with no signs of slowing down. At the beginning of the year, he released Cartoons Volume 3, then continued on with the Old School New School tour, and released Drip Tapes Volume 5 in February, plus a remix of Levity's hit track Flip It. In March, he played Illfest, as well as his Ultra Miami debut, followed by his Coachella debut the following month, plus one of his most exciting releases at the end of April. It's a collab with Mersiv and Juicy J called Trippy Land, and getting to work with Juicy J was a dream come true for him, as Juicy J is basically the embodiment of the mixtape era of rap. In an interview with UKF, Tape B spoke about the track saying, "It's so insane. Honestly, it still doesn't feel real. When we sent the track over to Juicy J, we didn't think they were going to reply, but a few hours after we sent it, his team hit us back like, Juicy J likes the tune, we'll get you vocals. The next week, we got the verse. Within the month, the track was out. It all happened so fast. The whole time, I was like, is this actually happening? The first time I heard Juicy J say, I'm rolling with the homies Mersiv and Tape B, I thought I was dreaming. That dude is one of my idols, a top 5 favorite rapper of all time for me." Weeks after the Trippy Land release, he played EDC Las Vegas, then he made a return to Red Rocks to support Subtronics for Cyclops Rocks. Soon after, he announced his biggest headline show ever at Mission Ballroom in Denver, and it sold out in minutes, allowing them to book a second night at the venue, with the shows set to take place this November. This summer, he played a handful of festivals like Forbidden Kingdom, Escapade, Breakaway Minneapolis, Elements, as well as opening for Ganja White Night for Wobble Coliseum. He also dropped Vibe Check Volume 2, and also started playing out a highly anticipated unreleased track, a remix of Sage the Gemini's Gas Pedal alongside Subtronics and John Summit, which was later released at the end of August. Another highly anticipated unreleased track of his, a collab with Ganja White Night, was debuted by Ganja White Night at Wobble Rocks in late May, so there's a lot of exciting new music to look forward to from Tape B this year. Moving forward through the rest of 2024, he has a blistering schedule of tour dates lined up, including his 3rd year in a row at Lost Lands, as well as a bunch of headline shows, including his 2 nights at Mission Ballroom, which will be his biggest headline shows ever. Tape B has had quite the meteoric rise in the last few years, which has been fueled by a few different factors. First of all, the rate at which he puts out music is insane and well ahead of the industry average, so fans pretty much always have something new to get invested in. On top of that, he uses nostalgia to his advantage, unlocking somewhat forgotten feelings by giving classic tracks a modern twist, bringing those feelings back to life. The Tape B project also serves as a bridge between hip-hop and EDM, especially for fans of the mixtape era of rap, as they can hear their favorite classics with a fresh spin. It's also interesting how crucial SoundCloud has been in Tape B's career, as the days of artists blowing up through SoundCloud are basically over and have been for quite some time, yet Tape B has somehow revived that, becoming the first artist to blow up through SoundCloud in years. I find that fitting, as SoundCloud has become somewhat nostalgic itself, so it's just another dimension of the Tape B project that perfectly embodies what Tape B is all about. As crazy as Tape B's rise has been over the past few years, I guarantee that he still has a long way to go, and we have yet to see the best of what he has to offer, making him one of the most promising young acts to watch over the following years.